and welcome to Hedgehog Hollow and welcome to our relaunch. I'm delighted to be able to tell you today that the first company I'll be affiliating with is Simon Says Stamp. I'm a huge customer of Simon Says Stamp and I'm delighted that they've allowed me to join their program. So today I have a card using some products that I purchased from them using the new Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to show you how to paint on black surfaces, we're going to do some resist embossing and we're going to create this beautiful border frame as well. So let's get started. Started with our card, I wanted to show you about Distress Oxide inks. Distress Oxide inks are something completely new, so I thought it was important to just go through why they're different to our original Distress inks. So here I have my Distress ink and my Distress Oxide, both in the Spice Marmalade. The Distress Oxide only currently comes in 12 colours, but I've got all 12 here, so you can see. Let's move that one for a second. The variety you can currently get. So there's some really pretty colours. And if you're watching us here on launch day, you can actually win some Distress Oxide pads as part of our giveaway. So be sure to hop over to the blog. Even if you're not on launch day, if you hop over to the blog, hedgehoghollow.co.uk, or the linked blog post that is in the description below, you will find out there's cutting instructions, there's supply lists, there's lots more pictures of our cards, lots of things that you can have a look at after this video. So these are the 12 colours we currently have. Let's go back to our Spice Marmalade and I can show you the difference. So let's open up our pads first of all. So that's our regular Distress ink. And now when I open the Distress Oxide, you'll see it's a lot brighter and more vivid. The Distress Oxide I would compare more to a chalk style pad. And if I put them down on my paper here, so if I put this one here, you'll see that it's a lot more intense. And you can see that there's some different textures that you get from them. Now the biggest difference, if I put them down on here, so that's your Distress Oxide, and this is your regular Distress ink, you'll see that this one, firstly it pulls a bit more, just that's purely because it's a newer pad. But when I bring it up closer, you'll see that there is actually a difference between the colours. Now, when you stamp out with them, they look really pretty. Let me just grab a little stamp here. So we'll use one of the Waffle Flower Potted, which is the stamp we're going to use for today's tutorial. And I will just pick this solid basket because it will show you. So if I stamp it out here, you'll see that's a far more intense. I also have a piece of black here, so I can stamp it on there so you can see it. So it comes up nicely on the black too. And if I just give it a wipe off, now I'm just going to use the ordinary Distress pad. And you can see particularly on the black, you don't really get to see any of the colour. So they're really interesting to work with. And to showcase the two different, I went with this card. This you can see here, I'm going to show you how to paint with the Distress Oxides. And there's a few little hints and tips that I've picked up along the way making this card for you. And then we're going to do a border with the Distress Oxides here. You make this little frame. So let's get started. Let me just clear these out the way. And I'm just going to give this is just a craft sheet. Again, I'll link up, I buy these in bulk because I use them for all sorts of things. I'll turn it over just in case. So I did do a little bit of preparation. So first of all, I've taken this potted stamp from Waffle Flower, which I love, and I have stamped it out twice on black cardstock, and then I've embossed it with white embossing powder. If you've never done heat embossing before, I'll link up our tool tutorial in the blog post so that you can find out how to do that yourself. This one I've stamped directly and then cut out using some dies that I bought. I would have liked one slightly bigger, but I didn't have anything. So this one fits really well. So this is the My Favourite Things stitched round rectangle frames. And then when you cut it out, you also get these little frames. This is a slightly smaller size, but you get these stitched frames that we'll use later on. So first of all, we're going to paint with our Distress Oxides. Excuse me. So I'm going to use quite a few of them so that you can get a good idea of some colours. Okay. So I started out with my pink and my purple. So that's Wilted Violet and Worn Lipstick. And I popped them down on my sheet here. And I just took an ordinary paintbrush and I added just a little bit of water into it. And you can see there what beautiful colour it gives you. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint my flower very roughly to get good coverage underneath. And this is particularly important with the flower because I like to layer a few different colours and textures. Now the biggest tip with Distress Oxides is the less water you use, the more intense the colour. Now as I lay this colour down, it looks quite purpley, but you'll see as I start to finish this flower and move on to the next one, that purple kind of disappears. But what it does do is give you great depth later on. So this was a key stage for me to make sure I added all of these colours in. Let's pick that piece up. Okay. So just go all over your flower. At this point you don't need to worry about where the colour is going in the flower. Let's go all over with that Wilted Violet, like so. And then we're going to do exactly the same with our pink. And we're going to do that on this flower. So again, you can see as it pools, it looks really pinky, but as it dries, it will go much, much more pale. And we'll come back and we'll add more colour in a moment. So now we're going to move on to adding some more depth and colour around these areas. So I'm going to move my craft sheet off to the side for now. And I actually just picked up my colours straight off of the Distress Oxide pad. So I have a reasonably damp brush at this point, and I'm just going to start by adding some colour into my cactus. And then I just keep drying it off so that every time I go back my brush is slightly drier, and therefore I get slightly more colour and slightly more intense colour. Since making this card, I've actually ordered the Distress Oxide re-inkers because I'm really interested to see if they give a better painting effect. But you can keep going back and you can see the drier my brush is getting, the better, or I shouldn't say the better, the more intense the colour is. Okay, so that's good for now. And then I'm going to use the iced spruce and broken china. And I used these two to fill in these leaves. And to do that, again, I took a reasonably dry brush and started by colouring in a few leaves with my iced spruce. And we'll do this one here. And then I went in with my broken china. So I'm going to go in here. And this actually comes out a beautiful blue shade. You can see here where it's starting to really pick up that colour. And as my brush is getting drier and drier, we're getting more and more of the blue. And I'm just going to go and pick up a little bit of the iced spruce as well again. Okay. Then I took some cracked pistachio. Now I love this cracked pistachio colour. It's probably one of my favourite Distress Oxides. I'm going to make sure my brush is quite dry because I like this to be quite intense. And I coloured in my front cactus with it here. So It's such a beautiful colour. It very much reminds me of macaroons or macarons that we used to get in London that came in these beautiful colours. And you can see this lovely chalky effect, and you can see how I'm building up my colour more and more and more. There we go. And then we're going to go back to our pink and purple. So again, I'm just going to take quite a dry brush. Let's just dry that off a little bit more. And I always just check it on the back of my hand, a bit like checking baby temperature. And then we're going to go in and we're going to add colour at the base of each petal. And as soon as my re-inkers arrive, I will also do a video on those for you and let you know the difference of painting with the re-inkers versus the pads. But so far I've been really happy with the pads to stamp with. They stamp beautifully with some really nice vibrant colours. They work really well with water, and you can use them like this on black. I'm also just going to grab a different paintbrush out of my drawer. This is actually one of my gelato paintbrushes, and I found that it picked up the colour really nicely. And this one is completely dry, so I will get the most intense colour with this one. There we go. So there's a nice pink flower for us. And then we're going to go back in and do the same with the wilted violet. I have to say I'm really hoping they do bring out distress oxides in all the distress colours, because I think it'd be a wonderful addition to our palettes. And again, I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to add it a little bit into each petal. And the thing I found when I was making my samples was to keep a dry brush for the more intense colours, and to keep going back and adding. The more you add, the more vibrant those colours get. There we go. You can see there we're getting that lovely purple shade. And again, I'm going to grab another one of my gelato brushes here. And I'm going to go in with a very dry brush, really load it up with colour, and pick out some of these larger petals so that we can really add some lovely colours into these. Like that. You can see there how beautiful that purple's come out. Then I'm going to just clean off again. Again, really dry off my brush. And I'm going to pick up some spiced marmalade. And with the spiced marmalade, I went into the tips of my cactus because I think they look really funky with that spiced marmalade. And this is another one of those beautiful, vibrant colours. It almost has a goldy sheen to it as well, so it's quite a metallic orange. And I'm going to also just finally go back with a little bit of peeled paint and cracked pistachio. And the reason I go back with these is just to add some more depth to my green leaves. Like so. I absolutely, I think this cracked pistachio may become one of my new favourite pads. Now to do my pot for my potted plant, I did something slightly different. So I used my Gansai Starry Colours, which are absolutely amazing. So for that, I'm just going to use a slightly different brush, which is already clean. I actually picked this brush up, it's awesome, in Tuesday morning for $1.99, and it was fairly recent, so be sure to go in and check that out. And I'm going to use the blue gold because I want it to bring out the blue hues in my flowers. So I'm going to add lots of nice water in to make a nice paste. And then I'm just going to go in, and you can see how beautiful and bright this gold is on black. Beautiful metallic palette. And I'll pick out a couple of the triangles. And then just to take a little bit of the colour, because I don't want it to overpower, I just went in with my kitchen towel. And then I'm going to pick out some of the white gold, which again will come out beautifully on the black. Oh, it's gone slightly over. There we go. See, things go wrong even in the hollow. Let's pick out a little bit more of that blue gold and just touch that back in. There we go. Like so. So I'm just going to put those to the side to dry. So that is our finished Distress Oxide flower. Now, what I did on the second one that we stamped out, I actually did this one earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this area here, and you can see how I've built up the colour so that we get these really intense colours. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my snips, which are here, and I'm going to very quickly cut out some elements that I want to layer up, almost for a decoupage effect. The key with this part is to have some really, really sharp scissors. That will make your life much, much easier. There we go, whiz around here. And of course you can take much more time going into all the detail of the petals. And I'm going to pick out the front three elements on this one. I just picked out the one flower in the sample I showed you at the beginning. And the reason I wanted to pick out the three elements is because first it will give you a completely different effect. I'll go back and do that a second. And I wanted it to look like they were actually overhanging on our bowl of flowers. Like this. So, and we'll just pick out a couple of these little tips very quickly so that we can get started on that awesome Distress Oxide background. So I've spent lots of time playing with different Distress Oxide backgrounds. I'm just going to pop this to the side for now, and we'll mount that up at the end. And what I did was I took a piece of watercolour paper, and I'll link up the one I used here, which is the Canson. And I'm going to use a piece of acetate. This is just off of a stamp, photopolymer stamp. And I'm going to use, what should we use? We'll use these four for our background. So I started off using the worn lipstick, so I got a nice pale pink base to work from. And I just pop it down onto the acetate. And I took this water sprayer. Now this water sprayer I bought on Amazon, and I'll link it up in the blog post for you. It saved me so much time. I love my mini misters, but I was going through so many of them when I was preparing this for you that I just, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a hairdresser, and she got me one of these off Amazon. So I just spritzed it a couple of times, and, oh, can't pick it up. First of all, I just very carefully dropped a few spots down. And then I kind of took Jana's technique of splodging. I don't know a better term for it. And I poured some of it out to the corners. And I just made sure that I had a nice pale pink base all over. Then I took in my heat gun. And then I kept coming back with other colours. So we'll fast forward through this part, but you can see me do each layer. And I also use my kitchen towel just to lighten up some of the areas as well. Once you finish, you'll have a really pretty background like this one. Now the key with that you'll see is I wasn't afraid to keep going back with more colour. And the other thing I would recommend to you is to make sure that your other previous colours are thoroughly dry, because otherwise you'll get some really muddy effects. Now I'm really happy with how this one came out, and again I'm going to go back with that same stitched frame from My Favourite Things, and I'm just going to use a little bit of post-it tape and pop this through my big shot. Now the central piece you'll want to keep, because we'll be using that in a future video in the week as a background. So what you can hear there is my new Vagabond machine, and I know a few of you have asked for a tutorial on exactly what it's about. It is lovely, it's brilliant, I love it to pieces. So I made a little mistake in the die cutting, but having offered it up onto the card, I'm not too unhappy with it. And as this one is just going on my sample wall, it will be absolutely fine. But you can see here I accidentally didn't put enough tape down and I cut off the edge. However, this is real life and things go wrong and we have to live with them. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some foam strips, and these are the similar ones that you use for shaker frames, and I find they work perfectly on here. And I'm just going to go all the way around one side, and I'll grab another one, and we'll go all the way around there too, and I'll just snip that end off. And we'll stick that on back on there. So now I'm going to pull this off. And we're going to put it down. And this is just a half sheet of 8.5 by 11 that I've cut long ways. You can also do it this way, so it opens either way, whichever you would like, but I wanted to show you the two options. Next up, I'm going to stick our base piece down, just using some double-sided tape. And I'm going to stick that into the middle of my frame. And I wanted my frame down first before I stuck this down, so that I know I just get it in exactly the right place. And I'm going to use some foam dimensionals just on the back here too. So I'm going to stick those onto there. So they really do look like, and you can see the nice dimension you get. So they look like they really are sitting on over the top of that pot. Now finally we need a sentiment. The set does come with some lovely sentiments, as you can see here. But I wanted something just slightly smaller that I could fit on a tag. So Simon Says Stamp very kindly sent me this set, which is a Happy For You set, and I've used this Enjoy the Little Things sentiment so much, and it also has a coordinating die set that's in the back here. And I used that cracked pistachio, which I told you how much I love, and I stamped this out, the Enjoy the Little Things, and I cut it out using the coordinating dies. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of foam dimension, and I'm still using my Stampin' Up ones because I haven't had the time to look at different ones that are available and actually find the ones that I'm happy with. And these have always worked for me, so I'm sticking with them just for the moment. Then I'm going to pick that up and pop it along the bottom here. And that's just along the bottom of my little thing there, so we can enjoy the little things. So that's it for today's tutorial. Stay tuned for our new end credits, and it'll give us all the different ways that you can connect with us. And be sure to visit the blog to find all your cutting instructions and supply lists. We'll see you again soon. Happy stamping. Bye.